Let's take you now back to one of our leading stories. 10 billion rand will be invested in early childhood development programs over the next 3 years. This announcement was made by President Cyril Ramaphosa, making that announcement at the Bana, Pele Early Childhood Development Leadership Summit underway in Braamfontein in Johannesburg. He also says South Africa should have started investing in ECD 30 years ago. Now, to discuss ECDs as well as just some of the utterances made by the president, let's now welcome Prof Metcalfe. She's a professor of practice in the School of Public Management, Governance and Public Policy at the University of Johannesburg. Prof, a very good afternoon to you and thank you so much for your time. So let's just take back from what was heard this afternoon. President Ramaphosa admitting essentially that government is 30 years late in development or developing a framework for early childhood development. When you consider the needs on the ground and just the lack of funding and fundamental programs when it speaks to ECD, just how vital are these programs in the greater education fraternity? And again, just your reaction on that funding of 10 billion rand in investment in these ECD programs.
Thank you so much. I want to take the response to the questions in three slices. One, has government done nothing? Secondly, why is this so important? And what is the moment of opportunity now? So in the first place, government has had the support of the ECD sector over these decades in saying that we must prioritize early childhood development. And there has been a national plan, a very thorough national plan. And that plan allocated responsibilities across the different government departments. Where we have failed is in two respects. One, making sure that we get a coordinated set of activities across departments, and then allocating the resources that are needed to give life to the plan. Why the issue of ECD is so important is that the literature is absolutely clear. The more that you invest in the well-being of young children, the more that we ensure that they thrive, the more that we act against hunger, malnutrition, stunting, provide emotional support, the less you have to spend in subsequent years on redressing the damage. So it is a vital investment. Now, what is happening today, and which the president came to open, is an initiative which creates significant partnerships across society to give life and energy and meaning to all of the commitments in ECD. So today we see funders, we see government departments across education, health and welfare. We see the private sector stepping up to say, Bana, Pele, we have first of all established a mass registration campaign. Now we have to have mass processes of firming up the early childhood education centers, which are community driven, which are located in communities and which government subsidizes, which is why the money that was announced in the budget is important, both for infrastructure and for the subsidy for these community-driven early childhood education centers.
And Prof, perhaps let's, just unpack where then, government should start, because you speak, of course, about just about government addressing and, redress for the damage that has already been caused. And I'm going to touch a little bit about, just some of those points I'd like you to unpack. And also having, to do the redress, but also to implement the plan that you speak of. I mean, from this conversation, there is no downplaying the importance of ECDs. I mean, we've heard various statistics that describe the lay of the land in terms of just the stats around early childhood development, from reports that only 68% of children between the ages of 3 and 5 attend an ECD program, and less than half of 4 to 5 year olds who attend early learning programs are developmentally on track. 1 in 4 is another statistics of children in South Africa stunted, you've also mentioned it, by the age of 5. And 4 out of 5 children can't read for meaning by grade 3. So where do they then start with the redress in terms of the damage that has already been caused here, and then implement the plan so that, we can play catch up, but also make meaningful change?
I think that we have to start with understanding what are the policy mechanisms and institutional arrangements. And what that means is, for me, early childhood development is from conception to the age of 9. So it's useful to think about it in periods. So the first 1,000 days starts from conception. We need health and social development to be stepping up to ensure that when children are conceived, the mothers get the appropriate support, the families get the appropriate support. The departments of social development and health are critical. In the second 1,000 days, which is more or less 2 to 3-year-olds to 4 to 5-year-olds, that is where the early childhood education centers are so critical, and which have recently transitioned from social development to education. And the next 1,000 days is from grade R, which is now compulsory, all the way through to grade 3. So where to start is with departments setting themselves clear indicators for what they're going to be held accountable for in all of those areas, implementing the policy frameworks. There's the muscle, not only of the DBE and its partner-driven campaign, Bana, Pele. There's also the work that the presidency is doing in prioritizing children. Now, that's where to start in policy terms. Where to start in terms of need is that the subsidy and all of the efforts that we put into place must focus on the most vulnerable children. We need in our provincial and local government leadership structures to have a very clear picture, a very clear database of where the most needy children are. Where are the children that are most vulnerable, so that we direct our efforts to limit the worst negative effects on young children.
Absolutely, Prof. Thank you so much for that. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, but it probably does become more important, as you say, to target those areas where the most need is, particularly if you consider some of these ECD programs and centers have to cater for everything, that the child needs, not just on the education part. But Prof, thank you so much for your insights. Professor Mary Metcalfe there, Professor of Practice in the School of Public Management, Governance and Public Policy at the University of Johannesburg.